If the grid went down during winter, you wouldn't be fighting zombies, foraging for food, and purifying water. Let's face it, you'd be struggling not to die from the cold. When the lights go out in winter due to a nuclear war or cyber attack, 90% of people will die from the cold alone. On this channel, we've shown a variety of ways you can keep yourself warm in the winter time, from clothing to hot tents to staying warm in your vehicle, mental strategies, or even installing a wood stove in your home. But what if you have to bug out in a pinch? How will you keep you and your family warm for a short period of time? In today's video, we're going to do a mock bug out scenario to our off-grid tiny home cabin to test out some new gear and prepare ourselves mentally for the worst of worst case scenarios. Alright guys, so we're just at the bunkie here. I'll show you what we got going on today. This beautiful winter day. It's supposed to be winter, but it's not quite, is it? So what we got going on here is we have the heat hog, and I got a little fan right on top there, just blowing that heat. It's nice and toasty warm in here, and right when we turn that thing on, we have that connected to a small 5-gallon propane tank. We also have a larger propane tank that we're going to be reviewing. We have our Zendur solar generator. We got our bug out bag, our deer hide. We got our deer skull that we hunted recently. We got our shortwave radio. We got our fire extinguisher, our pelican cooler with some deer meat that we're going to cook up. We got a dog. We got a cooktop, and we're actually going to be powering the cooktop by the Zendur. It's 2,000 watts output, more than enough. We got a kerosene lantern. That's going to provide a little bit of heat and light. I guess I'll just quickly show you guys upstairs. I'm curious to see how the heat dissipates to the upper regions. We got a bed that we got to set up. There's a cot over there. Yeah, check out a review of the bunkie. There's no special insulation in these walls. It is simply about 1.5 inches thick wood. It's nice and warm in here already. T-shirt weather, hey?
Yeah.
Now, considering it's December 16th now.
Yeah.
There ain't no snow on the ground.
That's crazy.
It is crazy. It's like
that's the rarest thing ever.
It's the rarest thing ever. And it's only 1 degree outside today. Normally it'd be like -20. We were hoping for some snow so that we could actually put this gear to a more rigorous test, but nonetheless it is still cold out by a lot of people's standards. So, Marshall, are you liking this heat? You liking that heat, bro? Are you warm, good sir?
Yes, sir.
Alright, so right now we are utilizing the Zendur to power this cooktop stove. We got our butter getting nice and saucy, and as you can see, we're gonna have 3 hours if we utilize this. Hopefully this only takes us around 20-30 minutes to cook. So I'm gonna pour the onions in there, get those nice and good. Some of the back strap of the deer that we hunted just the other day. All right, cooking up some deer meat stir fry by the light of a kerosene lamp, reading Prepper magazine, all powered by our Zendur. So here is the finished product. We got our veggies, our rice, our deer meat. Somebody's salivating. You got dog food, bro. Alright guys, I've been using the heat hog for about 7 hours now in a 100 square foot space that is 2 levels. Right when I turned it on, it was instantly warm in here. Like, it did not take long. Mind you, we have a very mild winter this year. I presume if it was -20 and heat was being zapped out of this place, you know, we might not be able to stretch our propane quite as far. But we're using this 5-liter propane tank, as you can see here. This propane tank should, in theory, last around 20 hours. But if this thing is running full bore on high, it might not last that long. Now I have this fan. This is just a cheap fan I bought off Amazon. And this fan is actually incredible because This runs on lithium batteries. It doesn't take a lot of power at all. I've had it running for 6 hours straight. And you pair that with the heat hog and you can basically direct that heat anywhere you want. This is the biggest heat hog you can get. This is the 18,000 BTU unit. I would say that this is more than sufficient for a space this size. You could probably even get away with one step down in the 9,000 BTU unit. One thing, of course, with propane, these are not rated for indoor use in Canada. For some reason, in the States, it's viewed as acceptable. One of the problems with using propane indoors is going to be condensation. In a wooden bunkie or cabin like this, it's not a huge deal. The wood tends to absorb the moisture, but we're really just testing this out in here. If this is a survival situation, we're not using propane long term, but propane does serve a very good function when you're on the go, when you need to be mobile. That's what these heaters are for, but I figure what better way to put it to the test than to bring it out to our bunkie cabin and see how long it could essentially heat that cabin. So what you can do if it's starting to get a little warm at the base is you can always do something like this and you can actually tilt it up so it's not going to make it as hot on the base. So that's one of the cool features about this. All right, so this is the X-Comp gas growler. It's a propane canister that's made of a composite material, so it's meant to be ultra light. Now, obviously, I filled this up with propane. It's completely certified, 100% approved. As you can see on there, this is a 20-liter tank, and it's super lightweight. Like, I don't think I could do bicep curls with a normal propane tank. I probably could. We're gonna go try this baby out upstairs on the heat hog. I have a feeling it's gonna be a sauna up there. Nice and toasty warm up here though, hey?
Yeah.
Not a bad little setup. Well, as you can see, lasted all through the night with plenty to spare. I think this thing is probably gonna run for another 3 days if we left it on as is. All right, so we just woke up, got everything cleaned up, and apparently somebody's still tired. Getting ready to hit the road here. How did you sleep last night in the bunkie? How would you rate your sleep on a scale of 1 to 10?
When we turned the heat hog on, it turned hot instantly.
Yeah, and well, when we came down here this morning, it was cold because we had the heat hog upstairs, and it was pretty cold down here.
Yeah, because heat flows
upwards. But actually up there it was very hot, and when you stand up in the loft upstairs it was incredibly hot, hey? Yeah, but all night, no, I think it was a good sleep. Wasn't much of a condensation issue up there. We had a window cracked. The only complaint was the coyotes were going wild last night, hey?
canines, yeah.
Overall, I'd say I'm quite impressed with the heat hog, how it performed, and I'm confident that, you know, if we ever had an emergency situation, it would at least carry us through for a few days until we can get, you know, wood stove set up and established wherever we were. Definitely a good thing to have, guys. Gotta have something like this. Marshall, are you ready to go, or are you gonna stay here?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Who's a good canine? Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
Okay, so propane is an ideal heating solution for preppers. For perspective, this giant lithium power bank that's about 25 to 30 pounds is actually only going to provide you as much BTUs as this one pound propane canister right here. That is why when it comes to heating, forget about lithium. It's not worth it. So we have our small unit, our medium unit, and our large unit. 4,000 BTUs, 9,000 BTUs, 18,000 BTUs. For every square foot of space, you need approximately 20 BTUs. Run times are gonna vary depending on how cold it is outside and how insulated the space that you're trying to heat actually is. This is ideally suited to a vehicle, maybe a medium-sized tent, ice fishing shack, and maybe this would be more suited to a tiny home or a larger RV. If you're using any of these devices inside, you want to make sure that you have ventilation. However, they all have safety features to prevent carbon monoxide poisoning. They have oxygen sensors. If the oxygen drops in the room, they'll automatically shut down. So you don't have to worry about dying which is a good thing, I'm told. They also have a safety tip over. So if for some reason one of these units tipped over, it would immediately shut down. I've used a lot of different space heaters. I prefer the Heat Hogs because they have a more robust build. I like the more linear form factor than some of the other curved units that are on the market. They do have electronic lighting, which makes them easier to ignite. And they also claim to have better efficiency because they have a system whereby you can store smaller propane tanks inside that keeps them nice and warm and allows maximal use of the actual propane canister. Another cool feature of the larger units is that they do have a tilt function. So you can direct that heat away from the floor. What sometimes can happen with the other units is because they don't have that feature, the floor next to the heating unit can become incredibly hot, which is a fire hazard, especially if the floor is made of wood. So when you tilt it up, you don't have to worry about that heat getting that floor too hot and potentially running the risk of starting a fire. Now, the only downside to these units is that there's no built-in fan. I found that this is not really necessary because once you have these on for more than 10 minutes, that heat is gonna diffuse itself throughout the room regardless. Where you might want a fan, and why it's better to have a separate fan system, is to blow the hot air down from your tent, and you could typically use something like a lithium powered fan. So if you're in a tent or a tiny home and there's a vaulted ceiling, you want a fan on top to blow that hot air down, because what's going to happen is all that nice hot air is going to be trapped up there and you're going to be freezing your ass off at the base of the tent or the shelter. So this is why it's way better to have a portable fan that's separate to blow that hot air back down. Having the fan on the actual unit is not going to do a whole hell of a lot, especially after 10 minutes of runtime. This thing got that bunkie toasty warm in just a few minutes on high, so you don't need it on high. Remember, 5,000 BTUs is probably more than sufficient for a room, and that bunkie was 10 by 10. It got the place like toasty warm. That was 100 square feet. But the thing is that you got to factor in if it's really cold outside, if it's minus 30, the efficiency of these things are going to drop. These two small units have piezoelectric. That means that there's an infinite ability to ignite the system with the piezoelectric igniter that's built into the unit. This unit requires batteries in order to be automatically lit. You hold this thing down and it's going to ignite, okay? Now, even if all of those things fail and you have an ignition source, you have a lighter, a match or something like that, you'll be able to ignite these, although the manufacturer would advise against that for obvious safety purposes. This unit can only accept the 1 pound propane canisters. This unit can accept 1 pound or the larger units. One of these will give you about 4 to 5 hours of heat. For this unit, on the lower settings, it will provide a similar amount of heating for these larger units. For the biggest unit, if you want to use it on high and you only have one of these, it's probably only going to last about an hour and a half. That's why I would strongly recommend, one of my favorite propane canisters is this guy right here, because this is going to give you, in the very least, 24 hours of heat when used at low. Let's say you're worried about being stuck in a snowstorm, or you do a lot of commuting out to remote locations. You're in the very least going to want a 5 pound canister for your propane. This might not be sufficient. If you're just an urban commuter, this might be fine. You get stuck in a snowstorm, you know, just to get you that few hours of heat while you're waiting for the tow truck. This is what you're ideally going to want for a vehicle for mid-term durations. Now, if you want to go a little bit longer term, like if you're planning on, you know, heading out to the bush for a few days, you might want to consider a 10 pound canister. And then of course, we can go all the way up to the 13.6 pound. Now, this one is incredibly unique. This one is made of a composite material. This is a special item, and it's just incredibly ultralight for the large amount of propane that you're getting. It's even lighter than this 10 pound propane canister right here, and this one is actually full and this one's empty. I guess if you were really concerned about weight, maybe you had to carry this in, maybe you're carrying it in on a sled, you might want to go with something like this. So the big boy, this is the one that most people are probably going to get, because you have versatility in that, let's say the power went out in wintertime, you wanted to heat a room, like you wanted to make a hot room, you're not going to be able to heat your entire house with something like this. And again, technically, we cannot recommend that you use this indoors in Canada due to safety regulations. So we have our one attachment here. This is where you would put your small 1 pound propane canisters. So you would typically plug that in here. Now you can put your backup propane canister back there. Now what I think they should do in future is just either have 2 ports as opposed to a placeholder for one, because nobody wants to have to switch it out every 4 hours. It's just a pain in the ass. Ideally for this unit, you're not using these smaller ones anyways. You're going to be utilizing the quick attachment here. So for that, it's really simple. You just plug it in like that, and then this is going to attach to your larger propane canisters. If you wanted to, you don't need this quick adapter attachment. You could just use your standard 1 pound to 5 pound or and up converter. One of the nice things about having access to the back ends of these units is that you can clean them. I'm not a big fan of some of the exposed wiring and things of that nature, but this is going to be closed most of the time anyways. And overall, it's a very robust build, so I'm not concerned about, you know, things breaking in that respect. We'll light it so you can see exactly how it works. So we're going to plug in our 13.6 pound canister. Turn that propane on there. Push it down counterclockwise, depress it for a little bit, and then turn it back, and then your pilot light should come on just like so. And you can go to the low setting, which is going to be your 4,000 BTUs, the medium setting, which is going to be your 9,000 BTUs, and the high setting, which is going to be your 18,000 BTUs. And that's throwing off a lot of heat. Now, all of these units can actually be mounted. So there's screw holes there, so if you wanted to, you could mount this on a wall in your ice fishing shack or in your tiny home or whatever. And this one actually has mounting on the bottom for stability. A lot of these smaller units like this tend to be very unstable, but this one I find is one of the most stable ones that I've ever come across. And so it's just built really tough. It is perfect for a small vehicle. I would strongly recommend this to anybody who is just trying to get like the basics covered. This one is really easy to start. So you just depress it for a second and click it, and then the pilot comes on, and then it's on. And it just has one heat. And this is actually good even if you're outside and you just want to keep your hands warm and you're doing some work and you got to warm your hands up periodically. All there is an on switch and an off switch. Completely foolproof. You don't need any batteries. It's all piezoelectric, super easy peasy. You throw it in the trunk and you forget about it. The ultimate combination is these two things right here. If you got these two things, you got enough to survive, I would say, for a couple days, possibly even longer. If you're using it intermittently and you're not seeking comfort, you're just about survival, then this can definitely see you through if you use this on the lowest setting. If you guys want any more information about these, post your questions in the comment section below. You can pick one of these up, CanadianPreparedness.com. Use coupon code SurvivalPrepper for 10% off. Thanks for watching. Canadian Prepper out.
The best way to support this channel is to support yourself by gearing up at CanadianPreparedness.com, where you'll find high-quality survival gear at the best prices, no junk, and no gimmicks. Use discount code PREPPINGGEAR for 10% off. Don't forget, the strong survive, but the prepared thrive. Stay safe.